Select subcommittee on coronavirus pandemic basically said all the conspiracy theorists were correct. Every single one of them, no repercussions, no retractions, no apology from Rachel Maddow, none of it.
The reason our government exists is to protect this nation and its citizens. However, for decades now, the government has been lying to us and trying to manipulate public sentiment into believing those lies. And of course, the most recent example of this is the COVID pandemic. Everything that the government came out and said was blatantly false. And of course, all of the conspiracy theories surrounding the pandemic have been proven to be true. So what I want to talk about today, of course, is Joe Rogan discussing the release of the House report on the COVID response, which of course is going to raise some eyebrows. But before we get to these clips, please like and comment on this video so we can break through the algorithms. So here we go.
And in contrast to Trudeau, who's like a
full-on
gong
lunatic.
show.
Full-on lunatic who's completely changed his tune on so many different things, including going after guns, what they did with the trucker strike.
Yeah, like the debanking thing you guys talked about recently. It's like not new news in Canada.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, they did it to people who donated
Yeah.
to the trucker convoy, which is really crazy. So you just say, hey, these people shouldn't be mandated to get a vaccine that has, a safety profile that's really like, we don't really know yet. We don't know. There's no long-term studies. We don't really know what's going to happen. And you're just like mandating this?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? I don't have to do it. Why are you making me do it? It turned out you really didn't have to do it. So this is what's turned out now. Like, here, I'll send it to you, Jamie. So they released a study recently where the actual government went and looked over. Here, I'll show you this. So they went and looked over what the actual results were from the pandemic, and the findings they're not that shocking to anybody who was actually paying attention, but completely contrary to what the instructions were when we were young, and when COVID was recent rather. So COVID-19. This is the House released a 500-page report on COVID-19 pandemic. Key findings: COVID-19 likely originated from a lab-related incident in Wuhan, China. Crazy. You get banned from YouTube for saying that. Banned. Okay, over $200 billion in relief funds lost to fraud, with criminals exploiting weak oversight. Prolonged lockdowns and arbitrary mandates cause severe harm, economic devastation, mental health crises, and historic learning loss, while lacking robust scientific support. Policies ignored natural immunity, pushing mandates that eroded trust and harmed public perception of science. Absolutely. WHO and CDC compromised by political interference, offering inconsistent, unscientific guidance that fueled public distrust, and the key players included federal agencies and Cuomo's administration actively obstructed oversight efforts and hid critical evidence.
Christ.
Select subcommittee on coronavirus pandemic basically said all the conspiracy theorists were correct. Every single one of them, no repercussions, no retractions, no apology from Rachel Maddow, none of it.
Yeah, man. It's in Canada the lockdowns were pretty absurd. I know here it depended on the state and whatever, but yeah, Canada was like, get your vaccines or you're not leaving to go anywhere, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Oh yeah, Canada, they had it real bad, right? They don't have a First Amendment or a Second Amendment. So basically the government can do anything they want to you, including mass oppression. Now here in America, of course, it was basically just the government colluding with big tech companies like YouTube saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and censor free speech because we don't want this false information getting out about COVID, right? Even though everything turned out to be true. I remember the early days when you had some doctors on television coming out, hey, these are the treatments that are effective that we found against COVID. And within 2 days, they were completely canceled off of Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything, right? You could not find any of that information anywhere. But guess what? They were correct on pretty much all aspects, and all the information that was trickling out that was also silenced and censored. All that stuff turned out to be true as well. And as Joe Rogan was rightly pointing out there from the report, we were harming children by not allowing them to go to school. We were harming communities by not allowing proper policing, right? And of course, we were harming trust in science because it was heavily politicized, and everything they were were doing was not actually based on any type of data, on any type of truth. It was all just a bunch of random garbage to make people fall in line. And of course, there are going to be no repercussions. There are going to be no apologies, because why in the world would they? Biden supposedly is considering pardoning Anthony Fauci right now. So why would there be any apologies for any wrongdoing? Because nothing ever happens to these people. And that, of course, is why Donald Trump coming into power seems like such a breath of fresh air, because all of these government agencies, all of these government workers, they seem to be above the law, as we've seen time and time again. No matter how many mistakes they make, no one gets fired. No matter what laws are actually broken, no one is ever punished. And that is exactly what people expect from our current federal government. And of course, the politicization of science is extending into other avenues as well, including the current trans debate.
Perverts disappeared like the flu during COVID. Like they don't exist anymore. Like a guy in a dress who gets a hard-on going into the women's room is a woman now. They used to be psychos. It used to be like Norman Bates in the movie Psycho, dressed up like his mom. Silence of the Lambs, puts the lotion in the basket. It was like there was, if you wanted to make someone in a movie scarier, you put him in a dress.
Yeah.
You took a psycho killer, you made him dress like a woman, like, oh, this guy's crazy. And then somewhere we just decided that doesn't exist anymore. And so there's no perverts. And so anyone who just says they're a woman gets to go in the women's room, go in the women's locker, play in women's sports, and you're completely ignoring this subset of society that has always been terrifying to people. Creepy guys who dress up like women, who pretend to be women, are just perverts. They just want to sneak around women's room and smell their shit. There's people that are out of their mind, and you've given them a hall pass.
Yeah.
If I was a guy and I had a daughter and she was like 10 years old and she went into the women's room, and then I saw a man with a 5 o'clock shadow and a wig on go into the bathroom behind her, and I couldn't go in the women's room and see what's going on. I go, I don't know. That might just be a really kind person who identifies as a woman and happens to have a beard, or it could be a complete psycho, which are real things. And by being this compassionate person, I'm supposed to ignore the reality of psychos.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
This is where it becomes like a cult. Like, this is where it becomes like you're indoctrinated into this very rigid ideology that you can't stray from at all. And if you do, you're cast out of the kingdom forever. You're a heretic. You're a terrible person. You don't know what kids are like. You can tell your kid that they're a werewolf. Like, keep away from the full moon. You're a werewolf. Oh, I always knew. Like, they're kids.
Yeah.
Their brain's not formed. And also, they want to please you. And if you're like, how many Hollywood psychos have trans kids? How many people where they fly the flag of inclusivity and they're a proud progressive and I'm proud that I have a queer child? How much of that is your influence? Is it 0%? Because I bet it's not. I bet there's some sort of reinforcement of that. It's just like the numbers are so extraordinary. When you have parents that have 3 trans kids, you're like, what? 3? What are the odds of that? And you're nuts? You're a nutty actress and you have 3 trans kids? What's going on here? And you're not allowed to say it. If you say anything, you say, oh, this person who's clearly mentally ill might actually be mentally ill and might actually have Munchausen syndrome. You know, like they might be doing something terrible to their child because they're just fucking nuts and they want a trans kid, like so they could fly it they could put their pride flag on their front door and they feel like a better person. And all in the name of inclusivity, all in the name of being a kind, compassionate, open-minded person. That's not open-minded. That's nuts. And it's cowardly because you're afraid to say what you know to be true because you don't want to suffer the repercussions. You don't want to be called a transphobe, whatever the that means. You don't want to be called a bigot. You don't want to be called any of these things. So you'll go along with some of the most preposterous ideas, including pretending that perverts don't exist.
Oh my goodness, Joe Rogan is on fire in that segment. But he makes a great point because during this whole trans debate, whatever happened to the idea of just the creepy pervert, right? Who wants to go around and abuse people, right? What happened to that person? We all know they exist. We all know they're out there. Where are they hiding? Because part of the current dialogue is none of that ever happens, right? Every single person is exactly what they say or think or pretend to be. And if you go against it, you, of course, are the worst person ever, right? A transphobe, etc., as Joe Rogan says towards the end. So, of course, objective reality has no place or part of this argument. And when governments, of course, get their claws into this stuff, like what happened in Canada, then yes, you are going to go to jail. You are going to pay fines if you actually go against it. Oh yeah, this is totally natural. This is 100% compatible with modern ethics, okay? But of course, it's all off the rails. And of course, if we all had a little bit of common sense, we'd simply say, you want to be a trans person? Fine, but we're going to keep our women and our children safe, and you're stuck going into the bathroom and the locker rooms or the sport of your gender. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.